Hello, everyone. We are very happy to welcome you to the day two of our 5-day webinar series on Extensions 101. I am Nandita, and I also have Lavanya and Vinod with us during this session. We are from the Zoho Marketplace team, and we will be taking you through this webinar series. If you encounter any difficulties or have any questions during the session, you can post them in the chat window and we'll address them. Or if there's anything in particular that you require immediate clarification with respect to the ongoing topic, feel free to unmute and raise your query. So with this information said, let's move on to our webinar, the goal of which is to guide you on how you can build extensions for various Zoho products. So in the last session, you were given an overview on the following concepts, which were extensions, the Zoho developer platform, Zoho Marketplace. We also saw how we can create an extension for Zoho CRM and had an overview of the features that are available in the Zoho CRM platform. So over these next two sessions, we will be covering a few of those features that are available in the Zoho CRM platform in detail. So before we delve deeper into today's session, let's start with a brief recap of our previous session, where we covered certain topics like creating an extension, the Zoho CRM developer console and its features so that you can quickly recollect and smoothly transition into today's session. For that, let's go to Zoho developer. In order to enter Zoho developer, you can click on this Access Zoho developer button that is available. As it was mentioned in the first day session, Sigma is the exclusive platform that is meant for building extensions. So in order to enter into Sigma, you can click on the Start Building button. Choose the workspace that you wish to access. Once you choose the workspace, you'll be redirected to the Sigma platform. So in the first day session, you were given an overview of how you can create a new extension for a Zoho service. So let's see a quick recap of that as well. So in order to create a new extension, click on this new extension button. So let's go ahead and provide a name for the extension. Followed by a description for the extension. Since we are going to build an extension for CRM and explore the Zoho CRM developer console in detail today, let's go ahead and choose the service as Zoho CRM. Click on I agree to the terms and conditions. And finally, click on Save as Draft. So once you click on Save as Draft, the new extension is automatically created and you will be redirected to the Zoho CRM developer console, where you can find a variety of features that are available in the left panel, which helps you to customize and build an extension. So we were given an overview of these features in the left panel as part of our first day session. So with this, we have covered a quick recap on our summary on our first day session. Hope till this everybody's clear till this, where you can enter into Zoho developer and create a new extension. So as a continuation, today we will focus on a major feature that is involved in creating and authorizing a connection between Zoho CRM and another application through an extension. So in general, we know that building an extension is a plugin or an add-on that extends the existing functionality of a Zoho product. Today, let's see one of the components available as part of building an extension, which helps to connect Zoho CRM with a third-party application and thereby extend Zoho CRM's functionality further. So, the connectors feature is what we will be exploring in detail in today's session. So, before we get started, let's go over the agenda for today's session. So the topics that we will be covering in today's session are as follows. the need or the importance of authorization and authentication, the features that are available in the Zoho CRM developer platform to handle authorization for the different authentication types that are available. We will then get an overview of those features, namely connectors and custom properties, followed by which we will see an example use case along with a demo on creating and using a connector to establish a connection. So with this agenda in place, let's get into these topics one after the other. So in general, the process of establishing a connection between applications is very essential when there is a need to either push or pull data across the applications for seamless data transaction. Say you manage leads in Zoho CRM. Keeping track of all CRM lead files manually would require a lot of labor and make file management difficult. Instead, how convenient would it be if you could connect a document management application with Zoho CRM so that you can directly upload the files related to a lead from within Zoho CRM to the document management application and later retrieve the necessary files and have them displayed inside CRM. This would save us time tracking the files and help us be more organized. So in these kind of scenarios, you could establish a connection between Zoho CRM and the third-party application so that data can be synced easily between them. But in order for this connection to be secure, it has to be authenticated and authorized so that there is no leakage or loss of data that is involved. While different applications that you would want to connect Zoho CRM with would support different authentication mechanisms, the Zoho CRM developer platform allows you to connect and handle authorization for these applications by providing two major features, namely connectors and custom properties. So these features can be used to connect with third-party apps based on the authentication mechanism supported by the third-party app. If the third-party application that you want to connect with Zoho CRM supports OAuth protocol for user authentication, then you can use the connectors feature. Else, if the application that you want to connect with Zoho CRM supports API key or tokens for user authentication, then you can go ahead and use custom properties. So as a summary, establishing a connection between Zoho CRM and another application allows you to perform data operations between the applications. And the Zoho CRM developer platform allows you to create this secure and authorized connection by using either the connectors feature or custom properties feature, depending on the authentication mechanism supported by the third-party application that you're connecting Zoho CRM with. So the connectors feature can be used to connect with applications that support OAuth, and the custom properties feature can be used to connect with applications that support API keys or tokens. So with this differentiation into mind, let's get into the feature that we will be covering today, which is connectors. So as I had mentioned, there are two features that are available to handle the authorization and authentication. Today, we'll be exploring one of those features in detail, which is connectors. So let's see the steps that are involved in establishing a secure connection between Zoho CRM and another application through an extension using the connectors feature. So we will first need to create a connector for the application that needs to be connected with the Zoho CRM. We will then need to add the necessary APIs to the connector. These APIs are added so that the required data pull or push functionalities can occur between the applications. The connector will then have to be published and associated with the extension. Associating the connector with the extensions is necessary to invoke the connector API functionalities inside the extension components. So there are three steps in order to create a connection. One, you'll have to create a connector for the application that you're connecting Zoho CRM with and then authorize that connector. Secondly, you'll have to add APIs necessary to that connector. You're adding the APIs in order to perform the data operations as per your use case requirements. Finally, you'll have to publish the connector and then associate it with the extension so that that connector's API functionalities can be invoked inside the extensions components. So now let's see an example use case which involves creating a connection between Zoho CRM and another Zoho product, which is Zoho Mail. So consider the following use case scenario. A sales representative is generally in charge of managing contacts and their deals in Zoho CRM. Regular email communication between the sales representatives and the Zoho CRM contacts, whether before or after closing a deal, is essential for effective customer relationship management. Assume a sales representative has successfully closed and won a deal. In this case, several emails would have been exchanged in order for the deal to be closed successfully, and several more mail conversations would take place in the future to follow up on the business deal. So, how convenient would it be if for the sales representative to have all of the emails that are received from the deal's contact as a related list within the record itself? So let's look at how we can implement this use case in an extension by following the three steps mentioned earlier, namely creating a connector, adding the necessary APIs, and finally publishing it and associating it with the extension. So in order to achieve this use case, the first step is that a connection has to be created and authorized between Zoho CRM and Zoho Mail. And since Zoho Mail follows OAuth authentication mechanism, we will go ahead and create a connector to establish the connection. So for this, let's go back to our Zoho CRM developer platform and start creating a connector. So I've come back to my Zoho CRM developer platform and I'm going to go ahead and create a connector for Zoho Mail, which is the application that we are going to integrate with Zoho CRM. So in order to create a connector, you can use this connectors option that is available under the utility section in the left panel. Then click on this create connector button. So you'll be prompted with a window where you'll have to enter the connector related details. So since we are going to go ahead and create a connector for Zoho Mail, let's enter the details with respect to Zoho Mail. So I'm going to provide a connector name and then a description for the connector. Then provide the name of the service for which you're creating the connector and then the sign up URL. So after we provided these generic details, then have to specify the URLs that are needed to generate the authorization token. So the URLs that are needed to generate the authorization token are the request token URL and the access token URL. So these URLs are specific to the third-party application that you're going to integrate Zoho CRM with. So in our case, we'll have to provide the URLs that are specific to Zoho Mail so that we can go ahead and create the connection between Zoho CRM and Zoho Mail. These URLs are generally available in the third-party applications API documentation. So I've already gathered these basic details so that it is easy for our demo purpose. So let me go ahead and enter those details over here. So the request token URL is essentially useful when you want to make a request to the third-party application's web server from your client application. So in our case, we are going to be making a request to Zoho Mail's web server from the application that we are building. Over here, you can see that there is a scope parameter that is available as part of our request token URL. So the second step that we'll be performing later, that is adding the necessary connector APIs, right? So for every connector API that you're adding, a scope will be related with that. So the relevant scopes that you're going to be using for your particular use case will have to be added as part of the request token URL itself. So I have gathered the scopes that are required for my use case that I will be using in the second step and already, provided it as part of my request token URL. So once this request is made to Zoho Mail and the request is authorized by the third party application, that is by Zoho Mail, then the third party application will send me an access token. So for that, I'll have to go ahead and enter this access token URL. So now the request is made to the third party applications web server. And once that request is authorized, an access token will be sent back. So for that purpose, we're adding these two mandatory details. We also have two optional token URLs wherein a refresh token URL is used in scenarios where there are cases where the access token expires after a given period of time. So in that case, if you provide a refresh token URL, then a refresh token will be generated, which will keep, generating the access tokens which will keep the access tokens from expiring and keep, refreshing them at given periods of time. So in those cases, the refresh token URL can be provided. And similarly, revoke token URL can be used to revoke the refresh token and the access tokens that are generated as part of this refresh token. So these are two optional token URLs, but we've gone ahead and provided the mandatory details that are required in order to create a connector. So after providing these details, I'm going to go ahead and click on the save button. So once you click on save, you can see that the connector is created successfully and we are prompted with a client credentials dialog box. So here you can see the fields like client ID, client secret, and the redirect URL. So in general, you have to first register your client application with the third party application to get this client ID and client secret. And this redirect URL should be provided at the third party application's end. So in our case, we'll have to register the client application that we are building, the third party applications end, that is Zoho Mail's end, and provide this redirect URL as part of that registration process so that Zoho Mail understands that it's communicating with this particular client application and thereby provides this necessary client ID and client secret. Yeah. Okay, so as I mentioned, like how earlier these token URLs are specific to the third-party application that you're integrating Zoho CRM with. That is the request token URLs and access token URLs. How they're specific to Zoho Mail that you're integrating with. This procedure to obtain the client ID and the client secret also is specific to the third-party application that you're integrating with. So in our case, we are going to go ahead and see how Zoho Mail, API documentation tells us the procedure to get client ID and client secret. So let me go ahead and follow that procedure. For that, we'll first have to log into the Zoho Developer API console. So let me log into the Zoho Developer API console. So once you enter into the Zoho Developer API console, you can click on this Add Client button. And then you can click on this Create Now option available under server-based applications. So as I had mentioned, we are going to register our client application with the third party end, at the third party end. So I'm going to go ahead and provide, since we are registering our Zoho CRM extension with Zoho Mail, let me provide the client name and the URL of our client application. That in this authorized redirect URL section, we'll have to provide the redirect URL which was automatically populated by the Zoho CRM developer platform. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this redirect URL and paste it in this registration process in the authorized redirect URLs field. So this will essentially tell Zoho Mail that this particular client application is communicating with Zoho Mail, and then generate the client credentials required. So after providing the authorized redirect URLs, you can go ahead and click on this create button. So you can see that the necessary client credentials have been populated. So we are going to go ahead and copy these client ID and client secret that we've retrieved and paste it in our Zoho CRM developer platform. So let me go ahead and copy these details into the platform. So once we've entered the client ID and client secret that we got from Zoho Mail, you can go ahead and click on save. So you can see that the client credentials have been set successfully and the connector is created. So the first section of the first step, that is creating the connector, is completed. The second section of the first step was that we have to authorize this connector that we had created, right? So you can see that there is this authorize connector button that is available over here. So let me go ahead and click on the authorize connector button. So you can see that, as I had mentioned, the request is made to Zoho Mail along with the scopes that we had provided. So this is a consent box wherein you are accepting to the scopes that you are provided as part of your request token URL. So if you click on accept, you can see that the connector is authorized successfully. So with this, the first step, that is creating a connector for the application that you're integrating Zoho CRM with and authorizing that connector is completed. So hope the first step in order to create a connection is clear. Does anybody have any doubts up to until this point? So with this, we have covered the first step, that is creating a connector and authorizing the connector. So the second step is that we are going to go ahead and add the necessary APIs to the connector in order to perform the required data operations. So before we start creating the connector APIs, you can see that there are two options, one to reauthorize the connector and the other to revoke the connector. So where does this reauthorize connector play a role? So there might be scenarios where you want to make some changes to the details that you provided in the first connector details page. If you click on this, dot icon and click on edit, you will be able to view the connector details that you had provided. So there might be scenarios where you'll have to add some extra scopes for the, if you're planning to add any extra APIs, then you might have to go ahead and add those scopes necessary for that. Or any minor changes that you're going to perform in this connector detail pages. Once you have done those changes, you can go ahead and click on save, and in order for those changes to be reflected and authorized as part of the connection, you'll have to go ahead and click on this reauthorize connector. So only after you reauthorize the connector, the relevant changes that you've made as part of the connector details page will be reflected in your connection. And the other option is to revoke the connector. So revoking the connector will simply revoke the authorization and the connection that you had created. So if you once you revoke the connector, if you want to authorize the connector again, you can simply click on this authorize connector button. So you can see that the connector will be authorized again. So these are the two options that are available. So with this mentioned, the next step, that is the second step of creating a connection, that is adding the necessary connector APIs, is what we are going to get into. So for our example, we would require two APIs. Let me show those APIs to you. Okay, so for our example, we would require two APIs. One is to get the Zoho Mail account ID of the user installing the extension, which in our case would be the sales representative. And another API is to search through that retrieved mail account for all the mails that have been retrieved from a contact associated with the deal so that it can be displayed as a related list. So we would require two APIs. One is to get the Zoho Mail account ID of the user which is a sales representative. And another is going to be to search the mails of the sales representative for all the mails that are received from a particular deal's contact so that they can be gathered together and displayed as a related list as shown in our previous screenshot. So let's see how we can go ahead and add these connector APIs. So I'm going back to my Zoho CRM developer platform. And in order to create the connector API, click on this Create Connector API button. So I'm first going to create the connector API to get the Zoho Mail account ID of the sales representative. So let me give the connector API name. I'm going to go ahead and give it as get account details. And then the method is going to be retrieving. So I'm going to go ahead and give it as get. So these URLs or these APIs are provided as part of Zoho Mail API documentation, which will be shared with you in the chat. I've already gathered the URL that is required for that so that we can proceed easily with our demo. So I'm going ahead and entering the API to get the account details of the Zoho Mail user. So this specify header section is when certain APIs would require certain headers to be provided as part of their creation. So if there is any header that has to be provided as part of the API that you're creating, you can go ahead and provide those headers in this section. There is no header that is required for this particular API. So I'm going to simply go ahead and click on create. So you can see that the connector API is created successfully. And the Zoho CRM developer platform provides you with an option to check if this connected API is working fine in this page itself. So how you can do that is by simply clicking on this execute button. So if you click on execute, you can see that a response code and a response body is being given to us. So 200 OK implies that this connector API is working fine, and the response body is provided with the JSON body wherein all the account details of a particular Zoho Mail user have been provided over here. So in our case, I've currently authorized this connection with my particular account. So I've authorized the connector. So my Zoho Mail account has been authorized and my details have been populated over here. When you're going to publish this entire extension and install it in Zoho CRM account, then the user who is installing the extension will be prompted to authorize the connector themselves. So they will be authorizing their Zoho Mail account at that point, and therefore their details will be fetched at this point, and the connector functionalities will be performed accordingly. So over here you can see all the account related details are populated, from which we will be requiring only the account ID as I had mentioned. So let's see how to do that in the later part of the code. But this is how you can check if a connector API is working fine inside the platform itself. Then we are going to go ahead and add the next API. For that, click on this Create API button again. And a second API is going to be to search through the sales representatives mails for a particular, for mails that are received from a particular deal's contact. So let me go ahead and add the details with respect to that. So I'm going to give the name as search mails, and this is also going to fetch the details or fetch the mails that are relevant. So this will also be of the method type as get, and let me provide the URL. So this is the API which is going to be used to search the mails of the sales representative. So in this particular API, you can see that there are three dynamic parameters that are involved. So if you require any dynamic values to be used as part of your connector APIs, then you can use it in this format. That is, you can give a dollar symbol and then provide a dynamic variable which is enclosed in flower braces. So this format implies that this is a dynamic parameter. So in this particular API, I have three dynamic parameters. One is the account ID, then I have the email ID and a deal name. So this account ID is essentially the account ID of the Zoho Mail account through which the mails have to be searched. So this will be the account ID that we retrieve from this get account details API that we have created earlier. Then the Zoho Mail allows provides you with a search criteria wherein you can specify based on what criteria you want the mails to be retrieved. So I have used two criteria. One is the sender and the other is entire. So the sender is essentially the email address of the receiver. That is all the mails that are retrieved from or received from a particular deals contact in the Zoho sales representative Zoho mail account is what we want to receive, right? So I will be entering this deals contacts email ID as part of the sender search criteria, and the entire keyword essentially means that whatever value you pass to this entire keyword will have to be searched as part of that mail that you're retrieving. So this API would search through the sales representative's mail account for all the mails that are received from the deals contact having the deal name as a keyword in it. So with this, the URL is being created and there is no header that is required for this particular API as well. So let me go ahead and click on create. So you can see that the search mails API is also created, and the Zoho CRM platform also allows you to, check connector APIs that have dynamic parameters. So what you can do is that you can click on this execute button and you will be prompted with this dialog box wherein you can enter sample data for those dynamic variables that you have created. So I have a sample data which I'm going to go ahead and enter over here to just show you how the dynamic, if you provide values for the dynamic variables, then how the response is returned. So, what essentially our API will do is that it will search through this particular Zoho Mail account for all the mails that are received from this particular mail ID. So, this is one of my deals contacts mail ID having the deal name as project test. So, let's click on set and execute. And you can see that since I have data or mails relevant to this particular sample data, my response is returned as 200 OK, and the relevant mails are also being returned as a JSON body. So this is how you can check if you've used dynamic parameters in your connector API. This is how you can set sample data and check if the connector API is working fine. So with this, the second step, that is adding the necessary connector APIs that are required for your data operations in the connector, and then checking if the connector API's functionality is working fine in the platform is completed. So I hope till this step, that is the second step of creating, connector APIs is clear. So we've created a connector for Zoho CRM, for Zoho Mail, authorized and connector, and then we've added the connector APIs that are required for our data operation. So the third step, which is that you have to publish this connector and associate it with the extension. So let's see how we can go ahead and do that. So in order to publish this connector, you can click on this publish button that is available in this top right corner. So once you click on publish, you will be prompted with this box where you can enter the support mail ID and release notes. So let me just go ahead and provide a support mail ID and some release notes. After providing these details, let's go ahead and click on the publish button. So you can see that the connector is successfully published. You can simply click on this OK button and then go back using this back arrow. So now we've created the connector, added the APIs and published this connector. So this connector component has been, created, authorized and published. But then we'll have to associate it with our particular extension, right? So how we are going to do that is that we can go to this associated connectors tab, and under associated connectors, all the connectors that you have created will be displayed over here. So I've created multiple connectors. Now the last connector that we had created was Zoho Mail connector, right? So if you click on this add button, then this particular connector that you had created will be associated with the extension that you have created. So now we have published that connector and also associated it with our extension. So you have this view all APIs button that is available next to the associated connector. So if you click on this button, you can see the APIs that you had created as part of the connector. So we created two APIs inside the connector, right? Namely, one to get the account details. The next one is to search the mails. So you have this unique identity which is available for each connector API that you have created. So if you click on this unique identity, you will get a window wherein all your connector API related details will be given. So this is the particular API unique identifier for the get account details connector API that we had created. So if we want to invoke this API inside our extension components, then you can do it by using this API unique identifier. So along with this identifier, you will also be able to see all the other details like the method type, the URL that we had provided. And the main point is that the Zoho CRM developer platform gives you a sample script using which you can invoke this connected API inside your extension components. So this unique identifier, right? How it can be used in a deluge code in order to be invoked inside the extension, that is being provided as a sample script by the platform itself. So we later see how we are going to invoke this as part of the code. But this is the unique identifier using which you can use your invoke the connector API functionalities inside your extension. So this is with related to get accounts detail. Similarly, we have a unique identity for search mails as well. So you can see this is the unique identifier for search mails. And then the method, the URL is also provided. Along with this, we had three dynamic parameters for this particular API, right? The account ID, the email ID, and the deal name. So the platform also provides you how, mentions how you can construct the data for these particular dynamic parameters and then invoke your connector API inside your deluge code. So this is a sample script that is available provided by the platform in order to construct dynamic parameters and then invoke your connector API. So we'll be later using this script as well in our particular, code, deluge code, while we are constructing the related list. So, with this, how you can publish the connector, that you've created and then associated with the extension is completed. So the three steps to create a connection, creating the connector, adding the APIs, publishing and associating with the extension is completed. We will next get into how you can, invoke these connector API functionalities inside the extension. But before we proceed with that, let me know if you have any doubts in the third step, which is publishing and associating the connector. So we've finished the connector steps. That is, we've created a connection for Zoho CRM Mail, authorized it, added the APIs, then published and associated with the extension. Now we are going to invoke that connector functionalities inside our extension components. So we wanted to create a related list and display our related relevant mails that come out of our data operations as a related list, right? So let's go ahead and see how you can create a related list inside the extension. So in order to create a related list, go to this component section, which is available under build. And then you can choose on this related details tab. So we have two options wherein you can associate a widget as a related list or you can associate a function as a related list. So if you use this add widgets option, widget is the topic that we will be covering in our day 3 webinar session. So if you have created a widget, then you can go ahead and associate that widget as a related list. But for today, our demo's purpose, I'm going to go ahead and associate a function to the related list. So in order to do that, you can click on this add related list button. So once you click on this add related list button, you will get this kind of a box wherein you will have to provide the related list name. So let me go ahead and give the related list name as related mails. So since we are going to receive, fetch all the related mails and, populate that as a related list inside the deals contact, I'm going to go ahead and give the name as related mails. And then there's an option to choose in which module this related list should appear. So we want this particular related list to appear as part of the deals record, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose on the deals module. So after giving the name and choosing the module, you can see that there is a map deal object that is present over here. So this deal, map deal object essentially means the current deal that you're working on. So when this extension is going to be published and installed in a Zoho CRM account, the current deal that you're working on, those deal related details will be, mapped to this particular deal object. So using this deal object, you can go ahead and perform the functionalities inside your related list. So this is the process of how you can create a related list for a particular module in the platform. I have already created a related list where I have invoked the functionalities, connected API functionalities that we had created so that, it's easy for our demo. So let me just show that related list. So you can see that I've created a related mails related list where the potentials module is otherwise the deals module. So this related mails is the name of the related list that I've created for the deals module. And this is the functionality that I've written over here. So the sample script that was provided by platform, right, for both the APIs, this is the particular sample script that was available for the search mails API. So I mentioned that the sample script included how you can construct the values for the dynamic parameters that you've created as part of the connector API, right? So there are three dynamic parameters: account ID, email ID, and deal name. So this is the sample, code as to how you can invoke the API. But in order to pass the values or construct and pass the values for these dynamic parameters, I've written the code to fetch these three values. So we required three particular details. One is the account ID of the Zoho Mail user, that is the sales representative's account ID. Then we needed the two details related to the deal, that is the email ID of the contact associated with the deal, and we required the deal name as well. So we are going to search the sales representative's mail for all the mails received from a particular deal's contact having the deal name as part of their mail. So let's see how, I've retrieved these three values as part of a code. So as I mentioned, this map deal object will be having all the details with respect to the current deal that you're working on. So using this Zoho CRM get record by ID deluge integration task, I've gone ahead and fetched the details with respect to that particular deal. So from those details that I've retrieved, I've taken the deal name and the email ID of the contact associated with the deal. So two details that are required for our dynamic parameters, that is the deal name and the email ID of the contact associated with the deal, is retrieved. The last detail that we require is the account ID of the sales representative Zoho Mail, right? For that, we had created a particular connector API to get the account details, right? So I've invoked that particular connector API using the sample script provided for that API. And from that response, I've taken the account ID alone. So now the three values required for my search mails connector API, that is the account ID, deal name, and the email ID, are retrieved. So I am going ahead and passing those values to the dynamic parameters. And then as per the script given, I've constructed and invoked the search mail connector API. So this particular API, based on the details that are passed, if there are any relevant mails, it will go ahead and be invoked and return the response. So from that response, I'm going ahead and constructing an XML. So Zoho CRM supports XML formats wherein you can go ahead and create a related list. So since XML is the format supported to create a related list, I've gone ahead and based on the response that I've retrieved, I've used the XML format to create the related list as per my requirements. So the response would would return multiple fields, but I've taken only three particular fields that I require from the response, namely subject, summary, and center. And I've constructed that in an XML format in order to be displayed as a related list. So this is the related list functionality that we have done over here. So after creating the related list and invoking the connected API functionalities that we had created, you can go ahead and click on save and close. So the related list is created and we've invoked the necessary functionalities that we required as part of our connector inside the related list. Now that the connector is created and then the related list is also created along with the connector API functionalities invoked as part of it, let's go ahead and see how we can publish an extension and install it in Zoho CRM in order to see our sample output. So in order to publish the extension, you can click on this publish button that is available, publish option that is available in the left panel. Then you can click on this publish button. You'll be asked to provide some custom notes. So since we've created a related list connector, let me just go ahead and give some sample notes. And then click on confirm. So you can see that our extension is successfully published, and this URL that is displayed is the installation URL that you can use to go ahead and install this extension in your Zoho CRM account. So let me copy this particular URL and install this extension in my Zoho CRM account. So I'm pasting it in the browser. So this will redirect me to the Zoho CRM account where I'm going to go ahead and install this extension. So agree to the terms. You can see that the installation of this extension in my Zoho CRM account is in progress. So let's just wait for this installation to complete. The status is active, which means that this extension has been installed inside our Zoho CRM account. So once you install, you can see that under the integration section, we have this connector that we had created for Zoho Mail. So as I had mentioned earlier, every user who's installing the extension will have to authorize their particular Zoho Mail account with the Zoho CRM account, right? So you can do that by clicking on this authorize option that is available over here. So let me click this authorize option. So this will essentially integrate or connect and authorize my Zoho Mail account with this Zoho CRM account. So our connector has been authorized successfully, and the components that you've created as part of the extension will be displayed over here under installed components. So inside the deals module, we had created a related list called as related mails. So you can view all the components that are part of the extension under this install components section. So now that we've authorized this connector with our Zoho CRM account, let's go ahead and see the sample output. So we had created the related list under the deals module, right? So let me go to the deals module and let me go inside a particular deal. So you can see that this is the deal name, and then I have a contact who is associated with the deal and their email ID is this. So our particular use case would actually search for my Zoho Mails account for all the mails that are received from this deal's contact having this deal name as part of the mail. So all those relevant mails would be retrieved and then displayed to me as part of the related list. So let's see if this related mails related list that we have created performs that necessary functionality. So you can see that the mails that are received from my deals contact are returned and displayed as a related list within the deals record itself. So this would essentially save time for me to, rather than go and check our Zoho mail account for all the mails received from this deals contact for business follow-ups. We've created a use case wherein we can simply integrate the product with Zoho CRM itself and perform the necessary functionalities as part of Zoho CRM itself. So, with this, our use case on how you can create a connector and associate it with the extension is completed. In our next session, that is our third session of Extensions 101 webinar series, we'll be covering the concept widgets in detail. So I hope this session was useful and everybody had an idea of how you can create a connector along with a demo example.